Okay, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that, how do I word this? So I started doing AppSec a long time ago. My first full-time job in security was in 2014. But I'd already, well, I guess I did security for 2007. But anyway, ignore that part. That was counterterrorism, and I'm not allowed saying anything except that. But so fast forward a bit, and then, I was doing an apprenticeship. I was learning on my own. I was doing community work and courses online, but my full-time job in security started in 2014. And when I started, security were the people that said no, and the people who came in right as you wanted to go to production and told you that you couldn't. They'd say, well, we're going to do a pen test. And it's like, why didn't you plan this 6 months ago? And so then it became, well, we'll do a pen test. We won't come after you're supposed to go live. We'll come before. Okay, great. And so then I joined an AppSec team, and this guy's like, well, we need to push left. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, if you draw the SDLC, it took him a while to explain it. So I'm going to explain it in a simplified version. Hello, Bangalore, India. Basically, if you draw out the system development lifecycle and you literally on the page go to the left, it's earlier. And he's like, we want to start security earlier in the SDLC. I'm like, why would we say push left or shift left? Why don't we just say we want to show up earlier? And he's like, because marketing. And when we were trying to get a message across, he's like, Tanya, for the longest time, we told people don't click on pop-ups. As a security industry, we told people don't click on pop-ups. And as a result, a lot of elderly people weren't doing updates on any of their computers because they thought that was pop-ups. And we spent all this time telling people don't click on harmful pop-ups. And then it turned out that meant that lots of people weren't updating applying security patches, essentially. And so we'd really failed. And he's like, if we have this phrase that is only ask shift left, and we explain it to people constantly, maybe they'll start security earlier. Well, fast forward, a bunch of marketing teams for various vendors got a hold of this, and they changed its meaning. They changed it to, well, if you buy my product, you've shifted left and security's done. Oh, just make the devs do all the work and it's done. And I remember talking to a marketing consultant who I no longer work with. And she had written up this thing and basically had written shift left means put our product in your CI and you're done for the day. And I'd worked somewhere else where I was being paid to write a white paper, and that's what they wanted it to say as well. And I had said no and basically got kicked off the project. And I was like, good, I don't want to be on this crappy project. And basically, I was like, that's not what shift left means. This is what it means. And she's like, shift left means whatever you want, Tanya. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And she said, Tanya, what makes you the expert? Why are you over me the expert on what shifting or pushing left means? And I informed her. And so some of you might not know any of my history, and that's totally okay. I do not expect you to. But I wrote a talk called Pushing Left Like a Boss and did it at OWASP Global AppSec in 2016 and in Dublin. And then from there, did that talk over 60 separate times. Then I open sourced that talk so that other people could perform it at work or their local community conference or meetup, etc. So it's probably been done over 100 times because so many people have done my open source talks. I have a bunch of them now. And then I wrote a blog series with 23 blog posts, which then turned into my book, my first book, Alice and Bob Learn AppSec. And so I'm like, I've actually literally spread this message all the way across the world. And I've had people tell me that I'm the person, I definitely did not make it up. I'm one of the people that helped popularize it. And I'm like, so yeah, I'm the expert. And we let that consultant go, not surprisingly, right? But it can't just mean whatever we want it to. And as a result, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I'm quite frustrated about it. And when Alexandra was like, hey, do you want to come and just like rant? I was like, oh my gosh, too good to be true. I really like this lady. And then she sent me seeds in the mail for my garden, for flowers. And I'm like, wow, now I adore her. But anyway, let's talk about this. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about application security. We're going to talk about crappy marketing that doesn't mean a lot. And we're going to talk about what we're actually here to do, which is reducing organizational risk. That's our job, to reliably, every single time, every single day, reduce the risk of our organization further. Every day, that's our goal. Every day we want to just chip away at that as best we can. And sometimes it means doing a great, big, huge project that gets us to the place we need to be. And, we're kind of plateaued for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, and then we go way more secure. Sometimes it means just fixing a whole bunch of bugs every single day. Every organization is different in your approach, but we need to make our organizations more secure. And every day that needs to be our goal. It's not what product did we buy. It's not any of those things. It is this. And so let's start the talk. Let's go. So the mandatory about me slide. So we do these slides. So when I first started, I didn't have one of these slides. And people told me that I needed one. And I said, why? And they're like, it's so that you impress the audience and they're willing to sit through your talk and they don't think you're an idiot. And I was like, oh, I did not know that. They're like, so you need to brag, not because you're trying to be like, I'm the best, blah, 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 but because you're like, please sit still, don't leave. I am competent. Allow me to prove it to you. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So the About Me slide. So I'm head of community and education at Semgrep. They bought my little company, SheHacksPurple, last year, and they're very nice to me. I am also known as SheHacksPurple. I wear a lot of purple, and it's because I'm purple teamer. I kept doing red team. I kept doing blue team. I couldn't make up my mind, and people started calling me purple team, and it stuck. And it turns out I really like purple. I wrote some books. Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding is my new book. It's available for pre-sale. It is coming out February 5th. And my old book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. I'm all about this level of nerd. I've worked in tech a long time. I started in 1997. I started some things. I give some advice and I do some research. And so hopefully you're like, she seems fine. I'm willing to sit through a few more minutes of this and tolerate her. Oh, thank you, Alexandra. Okay, so this is what I call my resting AppSec phase. And because we're using this instead of Zoom or Teams or a lot of other things, I can't see my notes. So you're going to get an interesting synopsis on this slide because I have a lot of notes because this is the first time I've done this talk. But essentially, sometimes I make this face when I'm not 100% pleased. And you know the real expression, resting blank face, but I prefer the resting AppSec face, where someone has done some bad security thing and I make that face. As you could tell from the beginning of this talk, I've been very frustrated with marketing teams changing the meanings of things. There was actually a marketing team that worked at a company that is a competitor to Semgrep, so I'm not going to name them because I don't trash talk my competitors by name because that's not classy. But they sent an email to their entire newsletter, and the subject was supposed to be shift left, but they removed the F in the first word. And wow, that really sends the message of how marketers think about the idea of starting security earlier. They really don't have respect for, so their goal and their incentives are perverse to ours. Their goals are to sell products, to get your attention, to grab your attention however they can get it, and then convince you that whatever product we're selling is great and that you absolutely must have it. And so a lot of them use fear, uncertainty, and doubt, scaring us into buying products. Some of them use data and science and innovation and a lot of technical, helpful articles to try to build trust. I prefer that method and approach personally. But they do all sorts of things, like telling you shift left is the only things that their product's capable of doing. It's the same with some companies issuing top 10 lists. I was at LastCon 2 weeks ago, and there was a great talk by this company about their API security top 10, and it was only the 10 things their product does. And they're like, those are the worst things in the world. And I was like, yeah. So they have perverse incentives. And I was tucking my stepson in 2 nights ago, and he's like, well, commercials, those are just lies. They're all liars, Tanya. None of the things they say are true. I like to think of them as just something that's entertaining before we go back to the show. That's just, imaginary. And I was like, sweetheart, sometimes you're smarter than me. Sometimes kids, they're so direct and they're so honest and they're so transparent. I'm like, that's brilliant. Yeah, you're right. He's like, they're just liars. It's all lies. And he's 8. So if at 8 he gets it, I feel like the rest of us can get it. And so shift left does not mean buy my product. Buying a product never has made you shift left. There's way more to it than that. Shift left does not mean making devs do all the security work. We don't get to sit back and be like, well, our work here is done. The devs are just going to handle that. They don't need any oversight. They don't need any advice or guidance. They don't need training. They don't need assistance. They don't need support. No, that's not what it's not. Definitely not what shift left means. It does not mean only doing security in the CI. So a lot of companies, their products only work in the CI, or it can be scheduled overnight, but it can't go in the IDE and it can't go in your code repository, and they've got nothing for you before you start coding. So there's some cool new products coming out that help you threat model and do other things, and that's awesome. And I'm very pleased about those products that start even earlier. Good job. But doing security only in the pipeline is also a failure. That's not what we're doing. And so what shift left does mean is starting security earlier in the SDLC. I want to be literally at your kickoff meeting for your project. Be like, hi, I'm Tanya. I'm your AppSec nerd. I will help you throughout your entire project as you need me. I will make sure all the security activities happen. I'm going to do my best to make sure you pass every single test. You might not pass the first time, but you're definitely going to pass before we go out to prod. And then after we go out to prod, I'm still your person, right? I'm going to make sure that we are monitoring and logging that app. We've got alerts going on. We are making sure we're still continuously scanning. We have a good incident response process all the way to that day that you decommission that app. And so shift left, what it's supposed to mean is starting security right at the very beginning, going all the way through the SDLC. And then my addition, shift security everywhere, means shifting right. So past go live day, all the way to the day where we decommission that app and it's done. The whole time we need to be present. And so shift left is not enough. It's not enough on its own. It can give companies, so someone just said in the chat, shift left can bring a false sense of security to the organizational leadership. Yeah, it can, because it's not enough on its own. We can't just do security in the SDLC. It gets out into prod and we're like, guess we're done with that. It's not like it serves our customers every single day. It still needs to be safe till the moment we take it offline. And so I guess I should start the talk now. So we started talking about shift left so that security wouldn't find out about new software 5 minutes before it goes live, right? Because we didn't want to launch new things that were a giant dumpster fire of, my boss used to call our firewall the Swiss cheese, not my current boss. And yeah, we don't want to launch a thing full of holes. Not as a replacement for a real security program. That's not what it was. It was like we had nothing and we were trying to get something. That message is old. We still want security to start at the very beginning and the whole way through, but it needs to go all the way till the end as well. And so shift left, it doesn't really mean very much anymore, unfortunately, because of marketers, says a person that reports to marketing. So our jobs is to reduce organizational risk, and it doesn't really matter how we do it, just that we do it reliably. So consistently, constantly, tirelessly, thoroughly reducing organizational risk every single day. That is our job, our number one priority. Everything else is bonus. Everything else is gravy. Gravy's delicious. I love gravy, but it needs to be what we do reliably. So nothing else matters. Just like Metallica said, the only thing that matters is reducing organizational risk. You remember them singing that in that song in the 80s, 90s, right? I felt the need to quote Metallica. I hope you like it. Anyway, so what do we do? What should we do? We want to secure the entire system development lifecycle. And I believe that the system development lifecycle, no matter which one you're doing, Agile, DevOps, Waterfall, or some weird one, it includes maintenance. It includes all the way till so like we focus on all the things till go live, but operational security for software is something that I see this huge hole in, and we must include that even after the release. We need to not just fix bugs, we need to prevent them in the first place. We want secure guardrails. We want to have security requirements at the very beginning of every single project that are super clear. Oh, you're making a serverless app? Awesome. Here's the list of requirements I have for you. Here's templates you can use. Here's a standard that we have. Here is support so that we ask for exactly what we need from those teams. Then they might actually provide it, right? Right now, a lot of companies are like, oh, you're starting a software project. Oh, we don't know what to do. So we need to do like threat modeling, reviewing that architecture, whether it's on a whiteboard or you have a very formal process. Someone from the security team needs to take a look at that so we know it does not matter how perfectly you implement a crappy design, it's still crappy, right? You've implemented a perfectly crappy design. We need the design and the implementation, the code, to be secure, both of which. So we need to prevent as many bugs as we can. And then the ones that manage to get through, then we fix those, the ones that matter. We need to talk to developers, like actually speak to them, like actually converse with other humans, which our industry is not super awesome at. And I know I'm an extrovert. We have a lot of introverts. Hello to all of you. I'm sorry that my giant personality is probably terrifying at times. It's not on purpose, not trying to make anyone uncomfortable. It's just what I'm like. But we need to talk to developers. We need to build relationships. We cannot change our culture with silence. It builds a culture, but it's a bad one. Tools are not enough. It does not matter if you buy the world's most perfect tool, if you have no processes to support it, if you don't show anyone how to use it, and you don't deploy it properly. Right? We need complete and thorough deployments. We need our tools to work with the dev tools. So if we have a security tool and it doesn't work with any of the devs' processes, it doesn't integrate with any of their tools, guess how many of them are going to use it? Way less than if it actually works with their stuff. We need to work with them every chance we get. Our stuff, we want it to click perfectly into their stuff whenever possible. We must do more than just deploy the tools. Teach them, socialize them, support them. Like, there is no point in buying some brand new shiny whatever AST tool because they all end in AST. It doesn't matter what tool you buy. If there's no support, don't roll it out well. It's really important that we make sure they know how and feel comfortable using this tool, and we help them do so. Yeah, the security tools need to work with the dev tools. It's not about compromise anymore. It's mandatory. It's an absolute mandatory requirement. And your tools must be used by the devs, meaning the tools must not make their lives suck. So imagine a cat being pet backwards. That is how you can imagine friction. Have you killed the cat? No. Is the cat going to die? No. Does the cat want to bite your face off? Yes, they do. When a tool is making tons of friction or petting the cat backwards, we are causing problems. We are not winning. Many less devs are going to want to use it. They're going to use it less often. Some of them won't use it at all. No one wins, including them. So we need a tool that is approved by them, which I know is extra work at the beginning, but it's less work in the long run. And we need culture change. And this is the hardest part. And it probably needs to start with us security folks. I remember when I started, I learned from a lot of people that liked saying no. I learned from a lot of people that enjoyed secrecy over transparency. I learned from a lot of people that felt that the more we shared, the weaker we looked. And I learned over time to change that. So what do? We ignore the marketers. And instead we focus on reducing risk. How do we do that? Please, please, please. So I have a big ask coming. Please select program goals and then measure against those goals. So if you can't measure against it, it's not a goal, because then you don't know if you've achieved it. It needs to be a quantifiable goal. So a goal can't be, oh, we're going to be more secure. Well, that means if I patch one thing, we're more secure. Boom, I can go home now, right? Do I get a paycheck the rest of the year? So we need to select program goals and measure against them. This is real. We need to choose a framework or build your own framework. It's okay. That's what I do a lot. A lot of the frameworks, like OWASP SAM, it's amazing. I've never worked at a place that could afford to do the whole thing. So I pick parts I really like and we do that. And then we have our own framework, right? Pick the parts you like and just do those. That's okay. But set a goal, measure those goals. Choosing stuff from frameworks is a really great way to help. So conclusion. Marketing should not decide your AppSec program. Hint, use data instead. Yes, data for the win. We must shift security everywhere, not just left. That's not going to work whatsoever. And we need a healthy relationship with developers or we cannot win. And by we, I mean all of us. The devs don't win. When we have a crappy relationship with them, you better believe it, they suffer. All of that. The business does not succeed and soar when two teams are not getting along at all every day. And so with that, I want to give you a couple free resources. And then I think I have a couple minutes left for questions. So first of all, Semgrep Academy. So Semgrep bought my little tiny Canadian training company, SheHacksPurple. And now the entire academy is free. And we've even added a bunch of new courses to it. Everything in it is free. There's no financial cost. We will send you marketing emails after, but I feel like that's pretty cheap for free courses. My books. So I have written 2 books now. Well, I'm like 99.999% done. I'm just doing edits on Allison Bobler and secure coding. If you liked my talk, these are less snarky versions of that with a lot more research. TLDRSec, my friend Clint has this newsletter and I really like it. And it is also free. And I thought I should add it to my slides because it's just so damn helpful. And then me. I have a YouTube, I have a blog, I have a newsletter, I have socials and all sorts of other things all over the place. If you look up SheHacksPurple, most of the time it's me. I have one imposter who tries to sell online gambling. That is not me, but all the rest is me. And yeah, so I am here to help. And with that, I'd really like to ask if anyone has any questions. I believe we have 6 minutes. I wanted to save some time. So select program goals and accept incremental progress. It is absolutely okay to take small steps towards securing the SDLC. Yes, Tejas, I hope I said your name okay. Thank you very much. Can AppSec and product security be mixed, and should they? Caroline, this is such a great question. So product security means the security for the entire product. If the entire product is a piece of software, it's really just AppSec, right? So then that's easy. Then it's kind of the same, like the same topics. Whereas if it's a hardware and software product, so for instance, this might sound silly, but I have Hot Tub. It's the best thing I own. and it has a computer inside that has software, but then it also has hardware. And I've had to repair it 5 times recently. And by I mean I paid a nice man to come and look at it. And we had a software problem and we had a hardware problem. And so now I have lots of shiny new parts and a software upgrade, and there was some soldering, and all of it made me nervous. But now I have a hot tub instead of a cold tub. And so, but the product security means all of the security specifically for one product or a couple of products for that team. Usually it's a really big product, right? That you would do that with. AppSec would be the software security for your entire org. And so they might roll out a static analysis tool, let's say, and then train all the devs. They're like, we're all going to learn secure coding together, and then we're going to show you how to use this tool so that all of us are writing better code, where the product security zones in on one specific product, making sure it's more secure. They may embed themselves in the team. And so can it be mixed, and should they? It really depends on your organization. Product security is like sort of this new idea. And a lot of it is AppSec teams just rebranding themselves and still doing the exact same thing, which is fine. Just to be clear, if your product is software, that makes sense, right? So basically each org's doing it differently. And I know that's not a helpful answer. Next question. Oh, hi, Taylor. How do you handle friction from engineers who don't care to use code scanning tools or understand the importance of AppSec? So that was a great question, Taylor, and a hard question. So in the past, what I've done, well, so when I started my first job, I had been on the software team. I was leading one of the big software projects, and then it was pretty much complete. And then I switched to the security team. So when I came over, I wasn't stranger from the security team. I was Tanya, who I used to eat like lunch with, right? So it was a very different relationship. And I did lunch and learns and all these things, and it went great. But when I went to my next office, it was a much colder reception. The previous security team had a lot of friction. And unbeknownst to me, there was another person on the security team named Tanya, who was quite the grouchy pants, I am told. I met her in a social setting and she seemed lovely, but apparently at work, not the same as after 2 glasses of wine. Who knew? Anyway, so I had a lot of uphill to do. And what I did is I did lunch and learns. I started this like little newsletter that was opt-in where I would give like little tips. I would go visit people. I would show up at their stuff and introduce myself. I did consultations on all the new policies and standards and guidelines I was doing. And over those 9 months that I worked there before Microsoft stole me away, I formed a lot of relationships with a lot of people and knew who to talk to and knew who to ask. And it was getting just better and better and better. However, Microsoft made quite a compelling offer. And so then I ran away and went there. And that was great. We need an open source AppSec program blueprint. Do you know of one? Do you mean how to handle open source software, like a strategy document? Is that what you mean, Tony? Because generally what I do is, so when I work somewhere, I try to centralize as many things as possible. So all of our code should be in the same code repository. All of our secrets in the same secret management tool, managed the same way, accessed programmatically, but not in the same vault. Each app has its own vault. Make sure everyone ideally is using the fewest number of programming languages and frameworks as possible. We're trying to all be on the same number of the same framework, etc. So the more centralization you do, the easier it is, right? So if you're not dealing with 22 languages, you're dealing with 2, that means you're dealing with way fewer open source components. Then I try to use a software composition analysis tool. I am extremely biased. I work at a company that makes one of those, and ours does reachability. So some of them do reachability, some of them don't. I like it because then I'm not fixing things that don't cause no organizational risk. So just because you have a component with a great big vulnerability in it doesn't mean that there's actually a path from within your code to get to that vulnerability, meaning it's not reachable from within your code. And if it's not reachable, most of the time it's not exploitable. And if it is reachable, most of the time it is exploitable. And so if something isn't exploitable, it's not causing legitimate business risk, and I don't want to spend my AppSec social currency on fixing those things. So I try to have devs scan in their IDE for that, so they're not putting monstrous, terrible things into the code in the first place. I try to have things scanned, like, so they'll scan their code as they check it in. It sends them an email and tells them if they've made grave mistakes. Then in the CI, I'd like to have another check. And then every week I just scan the whole code repo. And just basically it's like, yo, this is reachable and it's really scary. What can we do about it? And the rest goes into the backlog for if they can someday. So I don't know if I answered your question, Tony. I hope that I did. We are at time, Alexandra. Am I allowed to keep answering questions, or what should we do?
I think you have maybe 1 minute for the last question, but then that's it. I think we should prepare for the next session. So if you can answer it within 1 minute, sure.
Awesome. So Taylor says, yes, reachability is really important. Not all SCA tools have that. Yes, I want all of them to have it. I want all of them to have that. And is the current idea of shift left an example of security theater? How can we best reduce? Well, Shiv, that's a whole entire another talk. I don't think it's security theater. I don't think it's intended that way by security teams, but I do think it can become security theater. I don't even really say shift left at work. I'm just like, hey, I want to be at your kickoff meeting. I feel like it's a marketing phrase. I don't think we really need to use it. I think what we really need to say is, I'd like to have requirements for you, or we need to plan that threat model. But I want to respect the next speaker's time very much, because I'm very excited for the whole conference. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll see about putting some answers to these on my socials so that I can answer all the ones that I did not answer so far. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanya. It was very insightful. I think, there was a lot of feedback in the chat of people who, I guess, shared your point of view. Thank you so much. And everyone, please keep in mind, we'll try to, everything is recorded so you can access the recordings of the event just straight after it's done. Yeah, and then we are going to publish them on eventually on YouTube as well.